And one of the best things that I have found in bridging that gap is to use AI-led experiential learning. But experiential learning, as we simply know by learning by doing and seeing, does have its benefit. And I'm sure that my other panelists will elaborate more on how that is more beneficial than reading and memorizing from books. Introducing experiential learning in these spaces will only exacerbate the substantial workload and the stress on teachers, leading to more attritions from the workforce, which is not what something we want. And it's easy to set a question paper, 5 questions, 10 marks each, and then you can easily grade whether the student has answered those questions, the points that you gave marks for. That is not so easily done with an experiential learning module. So, what we need is to think within the teaching community, thinking about experiential learning and assessments, and whether that needs to be integrated into just the teaching component or the assessing component. But I do agree that it's a great thought and it's a direction that we should be going in. But before we begin that, I thought as the first speaker, I could give lay down a very broad context of what we are talking about when we are talking about integrating experiential learning in the Indian education system as proposed by the NEP. I realized when I was preparing for the talk that the theme pitches two forms of learning, experiential and AI led learning, in opposition to each other, almost as if they are antithetical. I don't think they are. I think they are, in fact, very complementary and they compound two very impactful and innovative pedagogical styles. So I was wondering what you meant by critiquing the AI natives and AI learning methods. And I do believe that perhaps what you have also arrived at in conceptualizing the theme is the same issue that we are currently seeing in Indian academia. It doesn't problematize so much the scope and potential of AI in education, but how currently the students are using it, probably using ChatGPT to plagiarize essays and stuff. If I can draw from my own experience, that's some of the concerns that we have been trying to battle with. And I do see that at some level that experiential learning can be seen as a benefit, as a beneficial way of teaching and assessing. But also, if that is the concern, anyone who's been in the system and has created AI produced assessments even at college level, will agree that OpenAI is no way close to producing a quality essay that's worth being graded with distinction. Uh, while machine learning can change this fact later on, but I think currently the onus still lies with the students to bring in the creativity and the criticality that we are looking for when we are grading and trying to grade an essay meritoriously. While also that means that AI can assist, and in my personal teaching style, I do encourage the use of AI to assist academic writing and academic pursuits. It is no way used suggested to absolve the student from investing in their own learning process. I do think that this I that I'm aware that some educational institutions are already taking note of this pattern and incorporating that within their system. I know that in my university, teachers who face this issue have responded to the misuse of the AI by innovating their assignment types. And some of these renovations do include experiential nature. So, in some ways, I do appreciate that because AI got involved, it has compelled us teachers to think differently about the way the education system has been so far. As you will have noted, I come from what is essentially a STEM training, and I teach in the global law school and social science schools. So basically, I teach students who come from a very different background. And one of the best things that I have found in bridging that gap is to use AI-led experiential learning. Much of my work does not have to do with nature, so obviously, unless you consider crime scenes that are outdoors, but that does help in accomplishing things that I wouldn't normally be able to accomplish otherwise, which is taking my students to a live crime scene. But experiential learning, as we simply know by learning by doing and seeing, does have its benefit. And I'm sure that my other panelists will elaborate more on how that is more beneficial than reading and memorizing from books. And I do agree with the sentiment behind the NEP guideline, that we should be moving our students from a rote memorization kind of education to developing critical thinking, problem solving, good communication, analysis skills. But to what extent, if I may lay the foundations of today's discussion, to what extent can we practically propose that this pedagogy will change our system? To contextualize, the education sector that we are all talking about as of 2022 data, it documents that India stands at a teacher-student ratio of 27 is to 1 in higher ed, in higher secondary schools, and as low as 19 is to 1 in some of the lower school class ranges. At university, the suggested UGC norm is 1 is to 20. And while many universities and schools will be found in compliance with that, all of us who are in the classrooms know that that's not the true representation of the ratio in which teachers and students actually interact. I handle a classroom of 40 to 60 students at any given time. Experiential learning, then, in practice, if you want to do it well, is a resource and funding intensive learning pedagogy. From the way that I have done it in my classrooms, the way I have been taught as well, you need people, you need budget to access to certain places, and you need time. That's also a resource that is needs to be dedicated to do good experiential learning. So when you're talking about a system, even if you can adjust, accommodate the budget by relying on nature, which is omnipresent and ever available as a teaching resource, you still need to employ well qualified teachers, both within the public and the private education system. This is not true. Um, in these spaces, currently, we know there's a lot of literature and conversation around how teachers are overloaded with teaching and administrative responsibilities. And without matching the manpower that's needed, adequate hiring, introducing experiential learning in these spaces will only exacerbate the substantial workload and the stress on teachers, leading to more attritions from the workforce, which is not what something we want. So, without creating appropriate budgets to supplement the field trips and learning experiences, these pedagogical initiatives sound good, but they're basically resembling tokenism. It's great as a marketing material if you are marketing your school or your college, but the realities of the takeaways that you do want, the educational advantages, will need to be accommodated for in policy. Secondly, we all have to consider that the education system is still operating in a structure that prioritizes marks over learning. And this makes sense because marks, numbers are measurable, they're tangible ways of assessing excellence, and that's more universal. These qualities, which means that what marks grades needs to also be measurable. And it's easy to set a question paper, 5 questions, 10 marks each, and then you can easily grade whether the student has answered those questions, the points that you gave marks for, and you can give them marks according to that. That is not so easily done with an experiential learning module. So, what we need is to think within the teaching community, thinking about experiential learning um, and assessments, and whether that needs to be integrated into just the teaching component or the assessing component. And if so, what are the quality standards that the NEP wants to foster in the assessment style of these modules? And I hope that that is something that someone will discuss later on in the evening. But you may also still consider to keep the experiential component separate from the assessment component and restricted only to the learning aspect. Even then, a good experiential learning will take time. If you look at the curricula that the schools have professed, that many of the top ranking university include in their semesters or trimesters, you will see that they are very content heavy. Our curriculum at school and university levels do not allow for slow learning experiences. And so, as a teaching community, and I'm sorry that I'm only identifying the issues and not proffering any solutions to that, but I hope that that is something that we can discuss in the panel today. That how do we make this learning module more time and resource sensitive in order to be able to incorporate that across the diversity of schools and colleges that we have in India. And if we haven't put that in place, our current education system, is it really ready for experiential learning modules? Yeah, so I would just like to say that I do agree that, so these are the foundations of what is our education system. And before we start discussing how we want to incorporate nature experiential learning into them. But I do agree that it's a great thought and it's a direction that we should be going in. I also do not agree that we should be dismissive of technology, especially AI. I think we need to consider how do we integrate both of them, because I do see that AI has the benefit of overcoming systemic barriers that are already existing in our system, particularly socioeconomic, language, physical limits of location that is very inherent and critical to experiential learning. So I hope that we can discuss better ways of not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and how we can include the other things that you want from nature learning, such as in empathy, environmental stewardship, a deeper understanding of life complexities, going outward, being inclusive. How do we bring that into our education system while also not discarding the benefits that tech offer? So thank you so much. I'll end here, and perhaps the rest we can discuss in the chat in the Q&A.